On the marble steps of a luxury high-rise, Nathan Cross, a respected businessman who was used to controlling everything, was crouched in his own suit, sweating through the fabric, his phone frozen in his hand, and his wedding band shining like it weighed a ton. Next to him, a tiny girl with light curls, hugging a dented plastic bucket, rose up on her tiptoes and pressed her mouth close to his ear. She didn't ask for food. She didn't ask for money. She just whispered one short sentence. And Nathan's face fell apart on the spot, because there was one detail in that whisper that changed everything. It wasn't just about a betrayal. It was a warning that he was about to lose much more than his marriage. Before we go on, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, city, state, or country? At 47, Nathan Cross paused for a second at the front door of his own mansion, as if checking whether he was really awake. Outside, the perfect front yard looked like a magazine cover. Grass trimmed to precision, small pathway lights glowing softly along the stone walk, and that expensive kind of silence you only find far away from regular people. Inside, the house smelled like polished wood and freshly brewed coffee, but his chest didn't match the scene. It was strange. Everything around him screamed victory, yet Nathan wore the expression of someone who lost something and doesn't even know when it slipped away. He hadn't inherited a thing. Nathan had built his life from nothing, sleepless nights, deals renegotiated at the breaking point, a reputation he guarded like skin. In the living room, an entire glass wall opened to a calm lake view, and still he stared straight through it, seeing nothing. His phone buzzed with messages from the board, numbers, deadlines, decisions, updates. He replied on autopilot, like a man trying to put out fires with his bare hands. The problem was, the real fire had no smoke. It showed up as distance, as quiet, as a hollow place that didn't fit on any spreadsheet. Vivian Cross, Nathan's wife, appeared in the kitchen in an elegant robe, hair pulled up in that messy but perfect, way too beautiful to be casual, too cold to feel intimate. She set a coffee cup on the counter without really looking at him. "You heading out early again?" she asked, but it sounded more like a script than genuine curiosity. Nathan nodded, trying to pull a smile together. "Got an important meeting." He wanted to say, "I miss you," but the words stuck in his throat, like they were too small for a house that big. Vivian scrolled through her phone, the blue light reflected in her eyes, and Nathan felt that old ache again. Being in the same room and still feeling completely alone. In the hallway, while fixing his watch, Nathan walked past framed photos, trips, parties, toasts, snapshots from a time when they seemed closer than they were now. He couldn't pinpoint the exact day when conversation turned into protocol, when touch turned into absence. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe pride, maybe they'd learned how to admire each other more than they actually listened. If you like stories that expose those cracks behind luxury without turning the rich into monsters, and the poor into saints, hit subscribe and stay with me, because there's a lot of truth hidden inside beautiful houses. When the driver honked softly outside, Nathan grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. The house seemed to sigh every time he left, like even the walls knew no one really filled those rooms anymore. He crossed the foyer with steady footsteps, but inside he was heavy, irritated with himself for having everything and still missing something simple. At the iron gate, just before getting into the car, he noticed one detail that didn't match that neighborhood. A small child on the sidewalk, standing very still, staring straight at him without saying a word. And something about that gaze made the back of his neck prickle. Nathan's black car rolled slowly down the stone driveway as the iron gate closed behind him with that smooth, soft groan of something expensive and perfectly maintained. Inside, the driver, as always, barely spoke. Nathan tightened the knot of his tie and opened his email, trying to convince himself that if he dove into work early enough, that strange feeling from home would stay behind. But the world outside didn't care about his schedule. And that's when he saw her. On the sidewalk, near the end of the tall hedge, stood a thin little girl, clearly too small for the coat she was wearing. The fabric was worn to sneakers, looked like they'd survived a war, and even so she wasn't. Doing what Nathan had seen so many kids do at traffic lights. No outstretched hand, no rehearsed plea, no dramatic performance. She just watched, still, steady, like she'd been waiting for that exact car to pass. And for some reason, that unsettled Nathan, not because of her poverty, but because of the certainty in her eyes. The driver instinctively slowed down. "Sir, do you want me to—" Nathan lifted a hand, signaling him to stop. The window slid down with a low hum, and the cold morning air rushed in. Up close, he could see her better. Dust smudged across her face, like someone who'd slept in the wrong place. And her eyes were what felt most out of place. There was none of that frantic look kids get when they're hustling for help. It was sharp, focused, almost adult, like she was measuring danger. Nathan swallowed. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The girl didn't answer right away. She glanced inside the car, at the leather seats and shining dashboard, as if all that comfort was a wall. She let her gaze drift for a second toward the huge mansion in the background, and Nathan realized she'd seen that house before, probably more than once. Then she took a small step closer to the window, and he noticed her hands. They trembled slightly, not just from the cold, but from nerves. I'm not asking you for anything," she said, voice low and steady. The homeless girl named Lena, 8 years old, sounded like she'd practiced that line. Nathan frowned, because somehow it felt less like a defense and more like a warning. "Then why are you here, Lena?" he asked. Lena took a long breath, like someone gathering courage to cross a bridge. She glanced over her shoulder to check the street, as if she were afraid of being seen talking to him. Then she turned back and leaned in closer, dropping her voice to a whisper. "I saw something. And if I tell you, you're going to think I'm lying." Nathan's stomach tightened out of nowhere, because the way she said it had zero playfulness. Before he could ask, "What did you see?" Lena slowly let the next sentence fall between them, like lighting a match near gasoline. Nathan sat there with the window down, cold air on his face, but his thoughts stuck. The girl, Lena, the 8-year-old sleeping rough, didn't blink. It was as if she'd decided that, no matter what it cost her, he needed to hear this. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror, uneasy, but Nathan made a sharp gesture for him to wait. This wasn't curiosity. It was a pressure in his chest he couldn't explain. The same feeling you get when you sense something is wrong inside your own house. "I saw your wife," Lena said, swallowing hard before she continued. "She was with a man, back by the loading area behind the grocery store. And they weren't just talking." The word wife, coming from a stranger's mouth, hit Nathan in a place that felt too private. Vivian, his wife, was someone he always defended with the same firmness he used to protect his company's name. He let out a short, dry laugh, almost automatic. "That's impossible." Only the laugh didn't sound strong, it sounded scared. Lena took another step forward, and her voice dropped back to a whisper, like the street itself might be listening. "I'm not trying to be mean. I heard what she said too." Nathan's fingers clenched around his phone until he was bending the case without realizing it. "What did she say?" he asked. Lena checked the street again, then answered. "She said you're in the way, that you trust too much, and that they were going to find a way to get you out." The phrase came out crooked, like it was too heavy for her tongue. Worse than the content was the way she said, "get you out," like she was repeating something she'd actually heard, not making it up. Nathan felt his insides turn to ice. For a second, he wanted the easy version. Kids exaggerate, kids misread, kids invent things, but Lena's eyes had no shine of manipulation. There was no, "what do I get out of this?" in them. Only a quiet fear and a desperate urgency that made far too much sense. Why are you telling me this?" he asked, lowering his voice, so much the driver could barely hear. Lena shrugged a small, almost sad movement. "Because when I saw it, I thought, he doesn't know. And nobody tells people with money anything, right? They just smile." Nathan glanced back at his mansion, beautiful and flawless, and suddenly it looked like a stage set, gorgeous on the outside, full of secrets behind the curtains. He wanted to jump out of the car, demand answers, confront Vivian right there. But the cold, trained part of him whispered for caution. He raised the window slowly, eyes still locked on Lena, and told the driver, "Go back in through the service entrance. No hurry." Because if that girl was telling the truth, Nathan needed proof before he moved, and there was one place in that house where reality didn't know how to lie: the cameras. Nathan never made it to the meeting. He told the driver to turn around, and on the way back, he stared at his phone like it might do him the favor of being wrong. His breathing was shallow, jaw clenched, and Lena's words kept looping in his head with terrifying calm. "Get you out of the way." When he came in through the side garage, he didn't even take off his jacket. He went straight to the small office almost no one used, the one room where the house stopped being a showroom and turned into backstage. Inside, the only light came from the security monitors. Nathan typed in the password with fingers stiffer than usual and pulled up recordings from the previous morning and the night before. Gate cameras, hallway views, the courtyard, the garage entry, all in that cold, grainy black and white. He fast-forwarded, rewound, fast-forwarded again, until he saw a car that didn't belong to the household pull in at a strange angle, outside the usual pattern. Moments later, as if the footage wanted to be cruel, Vivian appeared, slipping out through the service exit, smoothing her hair the way you do when you're about to meet someone you shouldn't. The next image was the kind that makes you want to smash the screen. Vivian leaning near the car, laughing quietly, and a man stepping out with far too much ease, hand on her waist, mouth close to her ear. Nathan leaned closer, as if that would change what he was seeing. The man was familiar. Owen Hartley, his trusted business partner, someone who'd sat at his dinner table, clinked glasses over victories, sworn loyalty while looking him straight in the eye. Heat flushed through Nathan's body, but somehow his skin went cold. Betrayal. He might have tried to file under personal pain. What came next was worse. The cameras caught Vivian taking a thin folder from Owen, both of them flipping through documents like people sharing a map. Nathan switched to audio from another angle, the corridor near the garage, and turned the volume up. The recording was patchy, but some fragments cut through clear enough to slice. Transfer. Signature. No noise. He trusts you. And Vivian, in a tone Nathan had never heard when she spoke to him, said calmly, "By the time he notices, it'll already be done." That wasn't just an affair. It was a planned hit. Timing, structure, and the cold precision of someone who knows exactly where to stick the knife. If this part gave you that sick feeling in your stomach, because you've seen pretty lies up close, or felt the floor drop out under you, tell me in the comments which detail hit you hardest. Sometimes putting it into words is the first step to reorganizing your courage. From that moment on, Nathan became dangerous in the quietest way possible. He called the CFO without giving too many details, his voice low and iron-hard. "Freeze everything you can, now." He called his private attorney and told him to come over discreetly. Before noon, he had blocked accesses, changed passwords, canceled digital powers of attorney. Owen had, for convenience. Every keystroke felt like hammering another nail into a door he himself had left wide open. He didn't yell. He didn't break anything. He just moved with surgical precision, because inside, his pain was begging to explode, and he refused to give them that show. When Vivian walked back into the house later, radiating that carefully practiced normalcy, Nathan was already seated in the living room, a brown envelope on the coffee table, and the camera remote in his hand. He didn't ask why. He didn't apologize for doubting. He just pressed play and let the silence do its work. Vivian went pale slowly, like her face was searching for a mask that no longer existed. With his throat on fire, Nathan simply said, "I'll let you walk out through the front door, but you don't take anything from here that isn't truly yours." Vivian opened her mouth, but no full sentence came out. And right there, in the middle of that bitter reckoning, one thought cut through everything he was feeling. A thought that didn't fit but hurt anyway. Where was Lena now? The girl had told him the truth, and he didn't even know if she had anywhere safe to sleep that night. In a house that once felt rock solid, Nathan Cross started seeing everything like a set built in a rush. Vivian was gone with a suitcase and a poisonous silence. Owen Hartley would soon turn into a legal headache. But what wouldn't to leave his mind was Lena's face, the 8-year-old street girl standing on the sidewalk, steady, not asking for anything. For a few hours, Nathan tried to return to normal. He answered messages, signed 2 documents, pretended it was just another rough day. The truth was simple. If that child hadn't shown up, he might have lost far more than money. And that shook him in a way anger couldn't cover. By late afternoon, Nathan got into the car with no clear destination. He just told the driver to cruise slowly through streets he never really noticed before, the ones where window displays gone quite hide how tight life is. They passed a grocery store with trucks unloading, corners where people huddled under awnings, an intersection where the wind kicked paper across the asphalt. He lowered the window and caught the smell of fresh bread from a small bakery still baking by hand. His stomach twisted not from hunger, but from guilt. She told me the truth, and I just left, he thought, and that sentence kept pounding in his head. He asked the driver to stop near the bakery and walked toward the back, where the light turned yellow and weak, and the floor bore the scars of crates dragged for years. Street noise softened there, like the world didn't bother with forgotten corners. He looked behind a stack of flour bags, beside a narrow alley, and saw the edge of a filthy blanket. Then came a tiny sound, almost a trapped sigh, and Nathan stepped closer, careful not to stomp. Lena was curled up, knees tucked to her chest, sleeping with a grimy little bucket clutched to her, like it was the only thing no one had managed to steal. Her face looked younger when she slept, and that hurt Nathan in a place he didn't know how to protect. When he crouched down, Lena jolted awake, ready to bolt. Her eyes scanned the alley first, always checking for danger before finally landing on him. "I didn't do anything," she blurted, voice rough from cold and exhaustion. Nathan raised both hands, showing he wasn't there to grab her. "I know. I came to find you," he said. Lena hugged the bucket tighter, suspicious. Nathan took a breath, choosing his words like a man walking on thin ice. "You warned me. You were right. And I walked away without even asking if you had. If you were safe." She didn't smile, didn't act proud. She just swallowed and dropped her gaze, like telling the truth always came with some kind of punishment. Nathan slipped off his coat and laid it on the ground between them, slow, at a respectful distance. "I'm not here to hand you over to the police. I'm not here to make empty promises," he said, his voice cracking at the edges. "I just want to say thank you and offer you a hot meal and a place to sleep where you don't have to stare into the dark, wondering what is coming." Lena hesitated, looking down the alley like that rough little corner was awful, but at least familiar, and the unknown could be worse. "I don't like rich people's houses," she muttered, like it was a rule that kept her alive. Nathan nodded. "Then don't think of it as a rich person's house. Think of it as a place with a locked door, a clean blanket, and someone who won't pretend you're invisible." The silence between them felt like a negotiation with no rush. In the car, Lena climbed in holding her bucket on her lap, as if that object kept her world from collapsing. Nathan had the driver stop at the bakery again and ordered a hot chocolate and 2 simple rolls, no fuss. She ate slowly, suspicious even of the good taste. Back at the mansion, The staff stared, surprised, but Nathan was clear. She's staying. And nobody asks her anything tonight. He set up a guest room in the simplest way he could know over-the-top luxury. Just warm light, clean towels, a bed that didn't creak. Lena stood in the doorway, not stepping in right away, like she expected someone to yell. Just kidding. Nathan just pointed to the bed. You can sleep. Tomorrow we talk. When he closed the door behind him, what he felt wasn't relief. It was a heavy kind of responsibility. Deep down, he already knew this wouldn't end with just one safe night, and sooner or later, he'd have to decide what this new presence would mean in his life. On paper and in his heart. Time didn't suddenly turn into a miracle, but the house's rhythm changed. Nathan Cross, the businessman who always knew how to manage risk, found out the hard way that kids don't run on meeting mode. Lena, the girl he'd found behind the bakery, began moving through the hallways like she was walking on thin glass. Quiet, watching everything, testing whether the piece was real. At first, she slept with a dented bucket propped against the side of the bed, like it was a bulletproof vest against the world. Nathan saw it and didn't comment. He just made sure there was a soft light in the hallway, because he'd finally understood that trust isn't demanded, it's built. Then came the formal visits, the hard questions, and a bureaucracy that, for the first time, Nathan refused to speed up with money. Social workers showed up, spoke with Lena alone, checked her room, asked those simple-sounding questions that poke every old wound. Do you feel safe here? Does he yell? Are you afraid of anyone? Lena answered in short, careful phrases, and sometimes looked at Nathan before speaking, as if asking permission to tell the truth. Nathan, the man who'd always had the right speech ready, stayed quiet and let her talk in her own time. In every detail, a slow meal, a folded coat, a clean towel, he tried to prove that no one here expected her to stay on guard all the time. On the day of the hearing, there was no luxury, no big party, no show. Nathan walked into the courthouse in an ordinary suit, his hands sweating like this was the first contract of his life. Lena walked beside him in a simple dress someone had chosen with care, the bucket tucked into a plastic bag, because she still couldn't quite let go of the one thing that had stayed with her. In front of the judge, Nathan answered questions about income, routine, safety, and realized how strange it felt to be evaluated not on the size of his company, but on his ability to care for someone without falling apart. Lena stayed mostly quiet, but when they asked if this was what she wanted, she lifted her eyes and said softly, I want to stay where I don't need to run. The scratch of the pen across the paper sounded louder than it should have. Nathan signed the documents with almost religious care, as if every stroke of his name was a promise he had no right to walk away from later. When the judge confirmed the adoption and approved the new last name, Nathan felt a weight drop onto his shoulders. Not a burden he wanted to escape, but a responsibility he'd chosen. Lena stepped out with wide eyes, clutching the paperwork like a passport to a life she wasn't sure she deserved. In the car, she repeated her name slowly, testing the sound. Lena Cross. Nathan swallowed hard behind the wheel, realizing this was the first thing of his that truly made sense. That night, the celebration was small, at the pace Lena could handle. A simple cake, 2 candles, and a quick photo in the living room. No rehearsed poses. Nathan Cross, the man who'd once given big speeches on stage, froze for a few seconds before he managed to say anything. Finally, he looked at Lena, not at his status, not at his assets, not at his past, and said only what mattered. That when the whole world acted like she didn't exist, she was the one who saw the truth in his own home. While he was talking, Lena pulled the bag closer, took out the old bucket, and set it in the middle of the table like a silent trophy. A reminder of who she'd been before anyone ever listened. Nathan stared at that worn piece of plastic and understood there was still something he needed to say out loud. The hardest part of all, that it had taken the smallest, most invisible voice in his world to wake him up before everything collapsed. Later that night, when the house finally grew quiet, Nathan Cross stayed alone in the kitchen with nothing but the low tick of the clock and the distant hum of the heater. The huge table felt too big for just two people, and yet, tonight, it carried a different weight. Lena, the girl who'd once slept behind a bakery, was now in the bedroom down the hall, door just cracked, hallway light left on. Nathan rubbed his face and felt a fatigue that had nothing to do with work. It was the exhaustion of finally seeing what had been in front of him all along. Some people talk and never really say anything. And some people who don't have a thing see everything. He thought about how many small signs he'd ignored because he decided they weren't his problem. An employee who lowered his head too quickly. Conversations that died the moment he walked into the room. Vivian herself polished, perfect, proper. And he, too busy holding the empire up to notice the crack in the floor. Then came the image of Lena, standing firm on the sidewalk, not reaching out her hand, not asking for spare change, not begging for attention. Her courage had no audience. It was a quiet kind of stubbornness, like the truth mattered more than whether anyone believed her. Nathan felt a kind of shame no amount of money could buy or erase. In the days that followed, he started listening to the house as if it were new. The way Lena paused before entering a room. How she checked windows by reflex. How she tucked away tiny items just in case. It wasn't drama. It was survival, learned the hard way. Nathan, who'd always seen himself as rational, understood that his life, even in its worst moments, had still been comfortable. Lena's pain had been bone deep. Cold, hunger, fear of not waking up. When he offered her something, she accepted slowly, testing if a hidden price tag would show up later. And Nathan had to learn to do something simple, yet painfully hard for someone like him. Give without demanding anything back. One night, Lena appeared at the kitchen door holding her old bucket and just stood there, saying nothing. Nathan turned his phone off without announcement and pulled out a chair. She set the bucket on the table like she was placing a secret between them. Inside, there was no treasure, just two smooth stones, a soda bottle cap, and an old button. Things that meant nothing to a rushed adult. Nathan looked at them and understood. This was her world compressed into small, pocket-sized pieces, because the big world had always been too dangerous. He didn't say, "Poor thing," didn't lecture, didn't try to turn it into a pretty lesson. He simply asked, "Which one do you like most?" And for the first time, Lena answered with a hint of a smile, as if she were discovering that being heard didn't have to hurt. Nathan kept staring at that worn bucket long after she went to bed, as if that cheap plastic was a mirror. The uncomfortable truth was this. He'd lived surrounded by well-dressed, smooth-talking, deeply interested people. And it was an invisible child, with torn sneakers, who had saved him from the worst kind of fall, the one that happens quietly, on the inside. And there, at the very same table where he'd once heard nothing but echo, Nathan felt one last question hanging in the air, heavy and simple at the same time. If the voice that changes everything can come from the person nobody sees, how many truths had he missed in his life just out of habit? Nathan Cross learned to look at his own house like a new place. The betrayal hadn't just ended a marriage. It tore away the illusion that money buys emotional safety. And in the middle of all that chaos, it was Lena, the girl the world kept pushing to the edges, who did the rarest thing of all. She told the truth without getting anything in return. In the end, it wasn't the mansion, or the company name, or his connections that kept him from losing everything. It was the courage of a child and the silence he finally chose to listen to. And you? If you were in Nathan's place, would you have believed that whisper? Or brushed it off as impossible? Which part of this story hit you the hardest? If this video moved you, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories. Because here, we do talk about wealth, but especially about what money will never be able to buy. Purity, courage, and the willingness to truly listen.